You explained me $200, right?
So I buy the iPhone from the US at $1,000, and I sell it for $1,200 in Japan.
By the way, just it's discrepancies. You explained the GDP calculation, import minus export, right? Export minus import. So it means import is just only $1,000, right? So
import
this
is $1,000.
Yes. So this is we deduct from GDP.
Yes.
So this is import, right?
Right.
So maybe GDP calculation we have two ways. Okay, you are talking about mixing two ways. Your former explanation is one way. The other explanation is just you explain like iPhone
There's
case.
many more explanations, Unno-san. There's the Cobb-Douglas production functions. There's the solar production function. There's a lot of ways that we can look at production.
No, your former equation of GDP is import is
This
minus.
This one.
Yes, right. Import is minus. Export is plus, right? But you iPhone is why not you just talking adding it to $200? I don't understand.
Because actually I add because I sell it for $1,200, but I do not add value of $1,200 because basically I import for $1,000. So my added value is $200. So it would not be fair.
M equals $1,000. M equals $1,000. C equals $1,200.
Yes. So there is somebody who buys my iPhone for $1,200. So the C goes up with $1,200. The M goes up with $1,000. That means that total GDP goes up with $200.
Okay.
So by doing that, by bringing the iPhone into Japan, I actually increase the GDP with $200.
But still, I'm another confusing. Japan is also importing raw material.
Yes.
Is this M import?
Yes, absolutely.
So it means minus import commodity.
Right.
From outside Japan.
Yeah.
Like
so
a component,
everything
else import is minus.
So Toshiba is making microchips.
Yeah.
They use raw materials from China. They buy the raw materials at a price of 100. They add value of 400. So that means that they are actually selling their products in Japan.
So it means C, we need to adding up wages, rent, right? Rent, wages, and profit on C, including C.
C is consumption that is enabled by profit, but that's the revenue that's going back here from the firms back to the household. But this is what we measure.
No, I'm talking about this one. Red line, wages, rent, dividend are going to be included in the GDP. And I is, you said you explained investment, right?
No, that's not GDP. Sorry, that's income.
Income. What is income? What is this income?
So well, basically, this should be the same. So there should be a balance because we cannot spend more than we have. Now, if we add the capital markets into this, we can make this much more complicated, but we try to keep it simple.
Yeah, I understand, but simplify, okay. But simplify, my explanation is, okay, C means this one, C is including wages, rent, dividend, right?
Yeah, but that's what the income of the households consists of. But we measure the consumer expenditure.
Income is what this means, this I is income, right?
No, investment.
Oh, investment. I is investment.
So actually, basically,
I understand.
what you don't consume, you invest. So we get the wages because we work in the factories. We get rent because we provide land to the factories to use, and we get profit, right? From that's the effect that the firm, if they do it well, they make a profit.
Okay.
So but that money goes back in terms to the households as dividend. The sum of this money, the households, they're going to use that to consume, to buy stuff.
Yeah, because I studied that when I was in high school, but I almost forgotten. So I just I tried to confirm.
So do you see the difference here? Is that if you would also include these things, then you would count them double, because basically the money that you get from the firms, you consume again. But if you would also include wages and rent and dividend into the GDP measurement, basically these are more or less in balance, because whatever you don't.
Oh, you're talking about iPhone sales price, but not including wages, rent, dividend?
No. But that's the difference between income and production. Basically, they add up. You both measure the same thing, but you don't want to count them double.
Yeah, I understand. But you said final product price.
Yep. Yeah, if the price is higher than the cost, then that means there's a profit. But the profit ultimately, if the people own the firms, then the profit goes back to the people. And what do they do with that money? They either consume it or they save it. If they save it, those savings are used, they put in the bank. The bank uses that money to give loans to the companies to buy machinery. That is investment.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to make sure and that's why the added value principle is so important.
Okay, I understand.
You need to make sure.
Takahashi, do you understand?
Yeah, I think I understand.
Okay, go ahead, move on.
Okay. So we want to avoid double counting. That's why we're looking at the expenditure side. Now, the income side is, of course, important, because without income you cannot spend money. But it is actually you cannot put them in the same model. Otherwise, you would have double counting.
This is understandable. But one way,
Okay.
one way, not both. So if you're going to calculate wages, okay, you don't counting price, right?
Right. Well, wages ultimately they depend on the income of the firms, of course.
Yeah, some cases GDP calculation is based upon wages and rent and dividend, but some cases calculation of sales price. Okay.
Right. So the normal way to calculate GDP is by doing this. So basically, I believe there is a ledger here. So this is what it looks like in the United States in billions of dollars. So gross domestic product is personal consumption expenditure, which is goods and services, and gross private domestic investments, fixed investments. Then we have export and goods of services, and government consumption and expenditures. So this is what it looks like. It's just like a general a profit and loss statement.
Yeah, I think this means that basically the profit of the nation in the nation, the profit in the nation, as Unno-san mentioned, and both of you are discussing.
Basically, it captures
the profit means the selling price minus the low price, low material.
So
the meaning that added value. How much value do you add on your service and product?
Right. So basically, we don't look at wages here, but of course wages are included here, because if we don't get wages, we cannot consume anything.
Yeah.
So instead of looking at the wages, we look at the result of the wages and the dividends and everything else, and we look at the consumption. So what do you buy? What do I buy? What does Unno-san buy? And we add them together, and we buy goods and services. Whatever we don't spend on consumption, we put in the bank, and banks are giving that money to companies to invest. We also need to understand that we are an open economy, so there's whatever we export is not consumed in Japan, but it doesn't mean that it's not produced in Japan. So if it's produced in Japan and sold overseas, then we need to add it to our production, gross domestic production, because it's actually consumed overseas. But there is also stuff that we buy from, like iPhones, that we buy from overseas. These things are not being produced in Japan, so we don't want to put them in a gross domestic product, but it should be added to the gross domestic product of the United States. So that's why we deduct our imports from our production, right? And government is also basically a huge body that consumes and like national defense, non-defense, state and local. So they are also a big consuming body.
Takashi, no, you are saying is wrong, and Ed is right. And iPhone imported this putting on X minus M import, 1,000 US dollars in the States, and the local market in the States, they're going to sell 1,200 iPhone in for the customer. This is personal consumption expenditure. This 1,200 here. So
right.
This is import is 1,000 US dollars, and just consumption 1,200 US dollars in the market, right?
So so if I buy iPhones and I start to sell them, then I hire staff, right? Yeah. And I need to buy a shop or pay rent to a shop. So if I sell it for 1,200, and after I pay my people, I pay them salary. Let's say 100 in salary, 50 in rent. Then I still have 50 left, and those are my profits. And those profits I need to share with my shareholders. And the shareholders, they get that benefit. So basically, the total added value is dividends 50, rent 50 that is paid to the people who provide me with the land and the real estate, and then there are the wages. So it all adds up. So the added value that I added, the 200, is actually it consists of wages, of dividends, and of rent.
Oh, you mean 200 including wages, revenue?
Yes.
Rent?
Yeah. So that's how they come together. So production, basically, the added value is 200, but those 200 that's not air, that's not profit. That's basically that goes back into the wages that I pay, the rent that I pay, the dividend that I pay.
Okay, let me try to make sure. Import is tell the truth, actually 600, not 1,000. Okay, because after import, they just product will going to add some assembly or some add work and some transportation and distribution cost and wholesale cost. So in finally 1,200. So you need to consider for another 600 will support to be, you said, wages, rent, and some sort of kind of cost, right?
Right.
Okay.